I think it's no secret that the Commonwealth, like much of the country, is dealing with rising energy costs, and as such, most folks are dealing with rising utility bills. In the Lehigh and the Lehigh Valley in particular, we've seen 44 million square feet of industrial space constructed in just the last decade alone. Logistical centers are great. They create jobs for our community, both long-term and construction, and they afford folks in my area an opportunity to earn a living wage. Some warehouse jobs, some of the best paying jobs we have in the Lehigh Valley. But yet, they also consume a tremendous amount of open space and farmland, and that environmental ramification is severe. I think that this bill allows us to accomplish a number of critical goals all at once. It allows us to vastly increase the amount of energy production here in the Commonwealth that is sustainable, renewable, and long-term. It allows us to make sure that we offset the rising energy costs that are going to almost certainly begin to materialize as things like data centers come online in increasingly large numbers. And frankly, the Commonwealth continues to grow. And we should make sure that as those large industrial buildings are built, whether they be warehouses or data centers, that we do everything in our power to offset the costs of the energy consumption that those buildings produce. These are some of the most energy-hungry structures that we build in our country, and I think it's critical that we make sure that we work with the private sector to ensure that those industrial structures do their part to contribute to the Commonwealth's sustainable goals, its energy production goals, and protect consumers, individual residential households, from bearing the brunt of those large structures and how energy intensive that they are. I think this legislation is pragmatic, it's sensible. It allows us to create good union jobs here in the Commonwealth, to make sure that we take idle rooftops that right now are frankly doing nothing, and not only produce a bunch of baseload generation for our Commonwealth, but make sure that the next generation of men and women who want to be union electricians have an opportunity to earn a living wage while they also create good green jobs here in the Commonwealth. I know we had extensive testimony a few weeks back about the nature of this legislation, so I'll end here. As we have evolving conversations, especially with data centers, I think it's important that we recognize that it is not wrong to place additional standards, responsibility, or expectations, that job creation is one component, but to welcome economic development and then ask the Commonwealth, and more importantly, its people, to essentially subsidize or bear the brunt of the ramifications of that development on their own and on their own backs is both unfair and unjust from an economic and a moral perspective. I would urge all my colleagues to support this legislation so that we can create baseload generation, we can add more renewable and sustainable energy to our Commonwealth, and most importantly, we can offer security and prosperity to another generation of families, the union electricians who will hopefully build these solar panels on industrial buildings across the Commonwealth, but specifically in the Lehigh Valley, which has become an e-commerce and distribution hub. And I hope it's a model for future industrial projects, and I hope we carry that same standard over to data centers as well as we move forward and try to balance both economic development and job creation with making sure that those projects are also a vehicle for good family-sustaining jobs and our renewable energy goals.